Hello, everyone. Hello. I am so excited today. We are having a fireside chat today with two phenomenal people in the space. I'm just really excited for the Black Blockchain Summit. I'm just so happy and grateful that they're able to bring the most knowledgeable individuals together to educate us and to talk to us about relevant things that are happening. And this fireside chat today is about Wall Street's view on Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. And we are talking about Bitcoin, we are talking about Ethereum, and we are talking about ETFs. And so we're going to make sure that we are bringing everybody up to speed. So the first thing I am going to do is allow my phenomenal guests to just introduce themselves. I can give them accolades from everywhere, but I want them to introduce themselves and just tell you a little bit about who they are themselves. So first up, we'll go with Leah Walt. Leah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It is my 5th year with the summit, so this is awesome. I look forward to it every single year. I learn every single year. I was at Howard the first year, so as a native Washingtonian, so it's great to be back. As an introduction, I've been working in Bitcoin asset management in the space since about 2016. First with Lucid Investment Strategies when I launched the Bitcoin investment arm. And then after that, I co-founded a company called Valkyrie Investments, and we launched some of the first ETFs that were traded in the United States. Valkyrie was sold to CoinShares, the ETF business, in March, and our private funds were sold last month to Abra Capital Management. And on the heels of that, I started as the CEO of Cypherpunk Holdings, which is a small publicly traded firm in Canada focused on investing in blockchain companies.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And then next up, we have one of the infamous teachers in our space, who's responsible for many of us really finally getting an epiphany as to what Bitcoin is. And so without further ado, if Mr. Lamar Wilson can come off mute and tell us a little bit about who he is and what he does in the space. And I know he's driving, so he may forget a couple things, so I'll remind him.
Yes, how you doing? I'm Lamar Wilson. I am the founder of Black Bitcoin Billionaire. I am also an educator in the space. I've been educating since 2013 on Bitcoin, just talking about Bitcoin. I also am a software developer that built one of the first early wallets in Bitcoin called the Fever wallet. So I've been around for a while, and I'm definitely a huge supporter of the Black Blockchain Summit. I think I was the first keynote speaker, so I've been a OG to the Black Blockchain Summit as well. So I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for being here. And so since we're talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, I think it's only befitting that we just do a couple things before we get into the weeds, because everybody is very astute in all their ways in this space. But I would like we'll just go kind of backwards today. Leah, I would like for you to explain to some of the listeners what Ethereum is.
Ethereum first, then Bitcoin. Oh, okay, sure, that's fine. So Ethereum was originally developed to be the world's computer. I think that there's a very big difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum on all levels, on vision, on use, on the community, across the gambit. But Ethereum as a blockchain provides an application layer for applications to be built on top of it. The native token of Ethereum is Ether, or ETH, and I will give it to the educator here to fill in the blanks on what I'm missing there.
All right. And with that, he'll help fill in the blanks, I'm sure, as we continue. If there were any blanks, he will fill that in. But we're going to ask Lamar to tell us about what Bitcoin is. And so, yes, I did that backwards at the Black Blockchain Summit. We can do things any way we want to do it. But Lamar, tell us about what is Bitcoin for those individuals that may not know that are listening to.
Bitcoin is freedom money. It is the hardest money that we've ever seen. It is a distributed ledger that provides for an anti-fragile system or network that connects people and their emotions through currency. No, but Bitcoin is probably the greatest invention of my time outside of the internet. So I think the internet probably was the greatest invention of my time, and I'm a millennial. And I think Bitcoin is number two. So, and from a layman standpoint, I think you did a great job talking to the layman about what Ethereum was. So I think you did a really good job.
You got the fun one. You got the fun one.
Well, you know what? We're going to have some fun with this whole thing, because before we start talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, I want to know what you all feel about Wall Street coming into the space at all, period. How do you feel about that? One of you take that on.
Well, for me, I've been around so long. My first Bitcoin conference was, I remember going into a basement with a bunch of guys that had on flip-flops and sandals and were carrying machine guns. So it was very libertarian, very freedom focused, very anarchy. I don't even know any other terms. And then I remember within a month of that, there was an event called the Coin Summit. And at that event, I saw gray and blue and black suits. And I knew that things were going to start to change. And so for me, do I care if Wall Street's in? Not really. I mean, Bitcoin's a tool and people can use it for wherever they want to. Am I a huge fan of Wall Street being in? Probably not that much, because as we can see, when people start just focusing on number go up and not necessarily freedom, things start changing in the market, and maybe not always for the better. So I really hope that people get back to understanding that Bitcoin is an alternative to the systems that have oppressed people all over the globe, and that we get back to understanding that it's freedom technology first and not necessarily just number go up.
All right. Thank you for that. And Leah, what do you feel about the initial Wall Street entrance into the Bitcoin and Ethereum space?
I thought what Lamar said was beautiful. Now I'm a product of the system since we launched the first, Bitcoin ETF futures on NASDAQ and spot and miners and all those things. Now, I think, you hit it on the head of what's the ethos and use of Bitcoin. I think that if we just talk about ETFs, exchange traded funds, it's a vehicle, right? And that's great. Some people who want to access Bitcoin need this vehicle. If they want to put their retirement funds into it, their IRAs, their 401ks, they need this vehicle. So I think from a structured perspective, it's great that this was created. And obviously I care enough to have dedicated, the past 5 years of my life to do that. On the other hand, freedom money, I agree. Now, I think there's been a big change on, are the cypherpunks still here? How it's, working, and is it working in developing countries? Has it just completely switched over to stablecoin usage? And I think that those are all topics of discussion for the development of the industry. But in regards to how do I feel about the fact that Wall Street is in, what concerns me about having quote unquote Wall Street in is centralization of holders. Again, I'm very happy that the vehicle exists for new people to join, like my parents. Although they've been DCAing on River for the past 4 years, so good for them. But, it's really centralized Bitcoin in the hands of the few, and I'm very concerned about that. A lot trying to engage with a lot of companies that are supporting Core and Lightning developers, and just, making sure that we're, doing what we can to make sure that the underpinnings and the code of the developers, are still able to take care and maintain and be interested in working on the system, because that's what matters. It's a community at the end of the day. And if Wall Street wants to come in, good for them. Everybody should have access. I think that Bitcoin is for everybody. And that's a vehicle for other people to also join the ecosystem as they see fit. So as long as all of us can continue to be part of this ecosystem in the way that we want to, whether it's representing privacy, whether it's representing, freedom money in regards to financial sovereignty, unconfiscatability, permissionless value transfer, all those beautiful pillars, I just hope we can, all continue to have that access.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Can I say one more thing? I also think from a custodial standpoint, one thing that I've seen happen when Wall Street enters, and that's the one thing that bothers me. Because like I said, I don't care if Wall Street's in. I mean, everybody should be in. But the one thing that does bother me is that we don't have any proof of custody for a lot of these entities. And so I feel like a lot of the times we're getting a lot of paper Bitcoins out in the space. And one of the qualities and one of the benefits of Bitcoin is that it is a provably limited supply. And the issue is that many of these exchanges may be running fractional reserves. And so we're not getting the true market. If you can add more supply by basically allowing people to trade on something that you don't have, and you don't have to go out in the market and get it, then are we actually getting the real market of what Bitcoin really is? Or are we getting some Wall Street derivative of what the market is? I think that's always been very interesting. And we've seen with entities like FTX dying that they didn't even hold that many Bitcoin. And so how many other exchanges, how many other Wall Street funds are doing the same thing?
And you're absolutely right. And that's actually a great lead in to a couple of things I was going to say. Number one, Leah spoke about the pillars. And you spoke about, Lamar, you spoke about the ethos, and now you're speaking about exactly what the huge problem is Wall Street bringing the train of thought that they've always had, which is not good to our ethos. And that is, I'm just going to say it from their perspective, because we've talked about our perspective. All of us all of us are in the space, so we understand the real ethos and the real pillars. But Wall Street's view on Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs is totally different from us. And so since Leah, you're on that side and you have actively seen how Wall Street reacts, can you kind of share with us what you feel like their main goals are coming into the space? And we know, but can you just share with us what are their main goals?
Unfortunately, speculation, to be honest, and truthful. I think, though, that I think it's hard to just say Wall Street. Some institutions are completely evangelized, like MicroStrategy, right? And if we want to call that Wall Street, which it is, it's a publicly traded company. Michael Saylor absolutely gets, supports, and understands, I think, the vision of Bitcoin in spades. So there are very interesting organizations that also care a lot about Bitcoin and have done deep research. Fidelity, the digital asset team, they also care a lot. The VanEck team, they all care a lot. And they've spent a lot of time, understanding and sitting with developers. And, again, I think that it is representing something different, more on the store value front, but a belief and care about sound money. Which I think also is, an important aspect of all of this. In regards to, the trading firms that are coming in now that they have easier access, speculation in stripes, and that can create unfortunate market dynamics that are more air-driven rather than value-driven. And I think that's true. But also on the other hand, if Wall Street means just a financial firm that provides these products, then again, I think that there is a beauty to my grandparents putting their retirement accounts, into Bitcoin. Now, Lamar, we could definitely talk about custody. However, on its basic level, they believe that they're buying Bitcoin, and I think that's great. So to your greater question, Naja, I think it's not the same reasons that we joined the Bitcoin, movement. And with that said, I joined really, as a full-time job around 2016. So I was already a latecomer. And the dynamics had already changed at that point. I know, I was learning about Bitcoin very early on, but I didn't make a career out of it until later. And, there was a lot of changes in the cypherpunk movement from, early days to 2016, of course, and the different bubbles that came. So to sum up thoughts, for the most part, the financial firms that are more actively engaged in trading, I think, are fully just cognizant and interested in speculation. But I do think that if we just say Wall Street, it's a bit of a misnomer, because there are a lot of individuals that are finally able to have access via those institutions, those Wall Street institutions that are offering the products.
I think the only problem for me is that access, though, can be taken away at some point. The beauty of the custody, I know that's why you laughed a little bit, but the beauty of the custody of Bitcoin is that you get to control your own keys, you get to control your own funds, and I feel like Wall Street is creating a honeypot for a 33 type of situation to happen again, right? Or 1971 with gold. I think Wall Street, because guess what? If the government comes and asks Wall Street, hey, give me all the Bitcoin you have, I don't think they're going to fight back. I think they'll say, yeah, we'll turn it over and you can give us your paper money to settle up the value. But we saw what happened with gold, right? In the same. So I think that kind of scares me, because if more people start only trusting Wall Street, we see what Wall Street even did to pretty stable markets like real estate, right? Sure. What happened in 2008? Like, every time Wall Street gets their hand on something, because of their greed and because of the speculation, somebody usually screws something up. They usually go a little bit too far. They go a little bit too far, and we wind up having crashes. And so I hope that doesn't happen with Bitcoin. And we've already seen some instances where Wall Street's influence has changed the way and the dynamic of the market, like you said. And so I think in the future, hopefully we get to a point where there are more people who are starting to value self-custody and understanding that Bitcoin is a different asset than everything else that is out there. I think that's the thing. The more Wall Street comes in, the more people start feeling safe with Wall Street. And we see what happens when people start to feel safe with Wall Street. Wall Street has, like think about it. We've had many crazy crashes because of some of the instruments that Wall Street has created, some of the inventions that Wall Street has created. So.
No, I agree with you, and I'm not laughing at all. I only self-custody my own Bitcoin, and only ever have, and I have not sold. So I'm with you there. I think that it's just a dynamic at the moment of what's approved by the SEC. But there's a lot of great stuff, non-custodial solutions. Like I'm always rooting for Caitlin Long and some of these other folks. So my hope is that, maybe there's a solution to be put there. But your greater point, I'm with you. I joined Bitcoin for the revolution, but I just think it's a tough one. The question is it, are the people who are buying through these institutions because that's their access point also a product of the system, or is it simply, which institutions are the ones that are creating the, the potential mess that you're talking about? And, that's the only thing that, I'm thinking about. Can they learn how to self-custody? Definitely. But I do think that in some respects that takes, a couple more levels. And I think we're going to get there, because I think this is a new coiner event that's finally getting, folks in and interested. So I still think it's a positive, but yeah, I'm, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm definitely concerned that they're the holders.
But you got to here's the thing that we have to think. We got to make sure that we don't allow regulators to fear us into saying this is the only way. Because if 401ks had access to spot Bitcoin, then people could just buy spot Bitcoin. But guess what? The regulators said no. So now we have to create these other instruments that are ETFs and all these other instruments for people to have access to what they normally could just get at spot Bitcoin. And I think that, to me, is a complete disservice. There are a lot of rules and regulations about what you do with your own money here in the United States that I think is like really screwed up. And we should have more freedom and more autonomy around our money to even purchase things like spot Bitcoin with our retirement funds. Listen, it's JG Wentworth. It's my money and I want it now. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works with the retirement stuff, right? So
yeah.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this, and I want to tell Leah, I want to give you a big hug and a big kiss. In no way is this slight to anything that you have said, but you said one key thing that I just wanted to scream. You said, of course, that your parents and your grandparents are getting into the space through the ETF because that's the path of least resistance for what they actually need at this time. And then you made a comment that they believe that they're buying Bitcoin. You said believe. Our community does not have time to believe they're buying anything that they do not have. Because, as you know, the wealth gap is astronomical between different nationalities. And for us to get involved in, and I'm not saying that they're not going to make any money with Bitcoin ETFs or Ethereum ETFs. I know they can, but I really want our community to be in a solid space where they actually own the asset. And I know you said you self-custody, which I definitely appreciate, but I have to make sure that those that are listening, you're gonna have to take the extra step. As Leah said, there's a couple of other layers. You've got to take those layers. And again, I don't care if you get involved in Bitcoin ETFs or Ethereum ETFs, if that's what you need to do to get into the space, but please take the extra steps to understand the extra layers, to get self-custody, and really, really have actual ownership. Because God, I mean, we've watched it in our community for hundreds of years. We don't even have to just go out of this last 100 years to really see how exactly what Lamar is saying, that it can be taken at any moment. And I don't think that a lot of people really understand our history, specifically African Americans, how many times banks and insurance companies and all these things just closed up and said, we're not giving you the money. And there's been not a penny paid after that. And it's kind of because they know that we'll just kind of go away and figure it out. And I don't think a lot of other communities have had the experiences that we have had. And that's why I think and feel that Bitcoin is so liberating for us. And as we get into, I get calls all the time, people that want to turn their 401ks into Bitcoin ETFs or Ethereum ETFs. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not a financial advisor anymore. I'm not providing any financial advice, but for me and what's at stake for us in the community, I am feeling like, and I'm going to just say it on here, I would rather people take their money out of their 401k, pay the penalty, put it into and have the actual asset than gamble with rolling it over. And again, I used to be a financial advisor, into an ETF and not actually having possession, because we've seen what that has done for us, giving people possession of. And so that's just kind of where I am. And again, no slight to anything that you're doing. I just think that our community has to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And we have trusted, and we have thought that we had, and we have done this like over and over and over again, and nothing has really gotten this wealth gap closed. And to the tune of being $150,000 to $200,000 behind everybody else on every single day of our lives, having something that we're not in control of just does not serve us. And so that's my little two Satoshis. But I appreciate both of you. And as we kind of get back into you two being the ones that are talking, how do you feel about what the future looks like in the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF space?
I think it's going to keep going. I think Bitcoin and even Ethereum, from a standpoint of in the mind share of people, I think they look at it now, especially in the West, as just another asset to add to their balance sheet, right? I think it's just something else to add to the portfolio. So I think, of course, Wall Street is going to keep finding ways to gather fees on holding people's assets. So I think that's going to keep going. But what I've seen and what I'm encouraged by around the globe is in places like Nigeria, where I know these gentlemen that created an application called MavaPay that allows you to send Bitcoin into Nigeria, and it gets transferred directly into a Nigerian bank account in Naira, and it takes about 7 to 30 seconds, right? That kind of stuff is what makes me extremely happy, because in countries like Nigeria, in countries like Argentina and these places where their money is not that stable, Bitcoin provides an outlet and a way for freedom. But I think as far as like the ETFs and Wall Street, they'll keep coming up with derivatives. And I truthfully believe at some point somebody's going to create some derivative that winds up collapsing the market for a little bit. We'll have a huge correction. I just don't trust Wall Street to continue to make products that are not going to collapse the market, because we've seen it over and over and over again with different asset classes. And I don't think this will be any different. So I think they'll keep doing it. They'll collapse the market in the West, but the people who need it the most will begin to continue to use it, and use it in a way that can actually change their lives, not just from a portfolio standpoint, but from an actual life standpoint, like literally change generational wealth in their country, generational like situations within their family. And I think that's what the future holds with Bitcoin, and not so much as Ethereum, but with Bitcoin.
And Leah, thank you for that, Lamar. And Leah, we know that you made a responsible Ethereum ETF and you sold responsibly. Hopefully they'll continue to carry your legacy for many years to come with no instances. What do you see as the future of these ETFs? Are you putting together a new one? What are you working on?
No Ethereum ETF. We focused on Bitcoin, and supporting Bitcoin miners as well. So we had an ETF that was supporting all those Bitcoin mining companies. Mining is really important to me. I think it's very interesting when done in an appropriate and sustainable manner. If we're speaking of African, brilliant entrepreneurs, I love the gridless folks. And they gave a great, there you go. Yeah. So, there's a lot of beautiful advances in the renewable space that also has that double opportunity to assist on the ground with mini grids and electrification that are needed. So in regards to the ETFs, I'll just echo you, Lamar. I think in the end of the day, there's a lot of advances around the world that will keep helping Bitcoin thrive in manners that matter. And whether it's what's been interesting to me is actually the rise of more true peer-to-peer marketplaces in Latin America. So not using central exchanges or DEXs, but true peer-to-peer, and they look similar to the like original marketplaces. They're really great. So I think that generally there's a lot of activity, a lot of building, and I think that it will create a world of good.
Well, thank you both. This was absolutely phenomenal. I know that our listeners are going to come away with a lot of great information. How would someone find you to speak with you about anything that they want to talk about? How would they find you on social media? Leah first.
Sure. I'm on Twitter, my name, and DMs are always open, LinkedIn too, but like a good person in crypto, I'll respond on Twitter, usually in short order.
All right. We sure appreciate that. We really do think crypto is just on Twitter, nothing else.
Yes.
But Lamar, how would they find you? And I know you are Big Mar everywhere, but how would they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at BIGMARH everywhere, like Ms. Naja said. Instagram, Twitter. If you want to hit me up, Twitter's probably the easiest way. If you slide in my DMs on Instagram, I will never see you because I don't know how to get to that extra box. It's always so Twitter is probably the best and easiest way to find me if you have any questions. Also, you can catch up with me 11 a.m. on Clubhouse on the Genesis block in the Black Bitcoin Billionaire. We still do those every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Come in. We talk about the same stuff we're talking about now and try to give people as much education as possible. We sticking to the plan. So it's good being with all of y'all, man. I had a good time. It felt good.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I
And
miss you, Miss Naja. I miss you.
I miss you too. And we'll definitely talk. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first on the Fireside Chat about what Wall Street's view on Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF is, but you heard mostly from our two experts about, how they're feeling about it. So get this information out to your friends and family, because there are a lot of our friends and family that are right now trying to figure out what to do moving forward, especially with all the things that are happening politically around the world, not just here in the United States. So really pay attention, really get your friends and family to understand what's going on so they don't get involved in anything that they assumed that they had access to. So we'll say it like that. And again, thank you very much. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Looking forward to seeing you soon in the cryptocurrency and the ETF space. I'm not going to be in the ETF space, but looking forward to seeing you there.